All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Village Trustee meeting on Tuesday, May 14th. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great. Good evening, everybody. Mr. Manager, are there any agenda additions or changes?
We do have one addition. We have an executive session for real estate. I'd like to put that under item 8A.
Great.
Please.
And do we need to add a possible action item for after that?
Yeah, it's possible, so
Potentially.
why don't we do that, and we can certainly put that under business item 5C, potential business item on land acquisition.
Great. Is there a motion to amend the agenda?
I will make a motion to amend the agenda as described.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay. Thank you. So we are now on to public to be heard. So now is a point in time in the meeting. If anybody in the public has something they'd like to discuss that's not on the agenda. Okay, hearing none. Moving on to business item 5A. Evan, would you like to take this away?
Sure. For the people at home, the village has been working on a new road connection between basically Main Street, Maple Street, and Park Street called the Crescent Connector Road. Tonight, the board is going to consider initiating a proceeding and a petition pursuant to 19 VSA Chapter 7 to lay out said road to be named Railroad Street and to be located at the beginning point on Park Street, approximately 875 feet south of the Five Corners intersection, then extending north along Park Street to the New England Central Railroad Burlington Branch tracks along the east side of the New England Central Railroad's Burlington Branch and crossing the New England Central Railroad's main line, continuing north across Maple Street and then along existing alignment of Railroad Street to the intersection of Main Street. This is a procedure prescribed by the Vermont Department of Transportation. There are steps that have to be followed. This is the first of the steps. And we have some commentary, and it's open to the public, but this is the first step for the board to ask questions and decide whether it wants to go through this proceeding.
And in terms of this proceeding, some of it just being to make sure that this is a necessity to begin with.
Correct.
And understanding that this is not just a new project that came out of the middle of nowhere, but rather this is a very long-standing project that comes back to the circumferential highway and the circumferential alternative funding sources. This is a project in which we are supposed to be seeing traffic studies that will have significant reductions on our wait time that happen currently at Five Corners. There's going to be an increase in safety for our residents on the both in terms of pedestrian and bicycle traffic. Not to mention, if this project were not completed, there would be significant funds, both federal and state, that the village would be on the hook for. So in terms of a necessity, I know I personally see this as one in which we need to continue to see this forward, and we can't have further delays. But does anybody on the board have any questions related to what this entails, what this means?
I'll make one additional comment, and I just to go into a little bit of depth, because I would add that after, to make it clear, thorough scoping, engineering, and environmental analysis, this project was selected by the Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission as one of the core projects in the CERC alternative program decreed by Governor Shumlin in 2011. And traffic studies have consistently shown that this project will significantly reduce traffic and wait times through Five Corners. The other thing I would add is that a benefit of this project is that there will be signaled and gated railroad crossings at the Park Street Railroad junctures, which will improve safety for vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. So, and we could use those right now, and they will be brought here as part of, they will be added as part of this project, which I think is a significant, and again, I agree, we would have to pay back substantial federal and state funds, because they are assuming that we are going to proceed with this project. Additionally, the village itself has spent substantial funds on this project already, which we would lose if we don't proceed with this project.
Amber?
So I see the time frame in here, but I'm curious as to how that impacts the actual construction as, because I thought we were putting the shovel in the ground, like, now.
Right, that's a great question. So there are two phases to this project. Phase one is to first do the railroad crossings and the railroad intersections, which will have no impact on what we're talking about today. Or what we're talking about today will have no impact on that phase one. And that's what's supposed to begin this construction season. Next construction season is when phase two would begin, and that's when this property, or these properties we're talking about, are gonna come into play, and then actually having the roads to then go over or go to those railroad crossings.
So hypothetically speaking, this process should be done before we're ready for phase two.
Yes.
Okay.
By beginning this today, everything should be ready for phase two.
Okay.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
just walk me through how we got here, briefly? Like how we got to this action as opposed to what must have been?
Right. I don't feel like I would be able to do it as good of a justice as the village staff who have been working on this so diligently. And seeing as we have Robin here, if you'd be so willing to come join us and give us an overview as to how we got here today.
Good evening. This is very similar to the process we went through with Pearl Street just over a year ago. When we're working on a right-of-way new or old, we have to go to the abutters and get easements from them. We did that with 56 people on Pearl Street. Luckily on the connector road, we only had to go to 18 people in total. Everyone on Railroad Street has signed off on the easements for the road improvement. The person to the west of the main line has signed off on the improvements for the connector road. There's only 2 people that haven't. We've been in negotiation for 4 months. And with any project that gets federal money, there has to be an appraisal done. And the appraisal has to be done by someone who's approved by the feds and the state to do that appraisal. So the appraisal was done, the funds were offered to the people in question, and they rejected them. And we've had 3, 4, 5, 6 visits with them, telephone calls, emails, trying to get them to come to the point where the approved compensation, as V-Trans says, is acceptable to them, and they've said no.
And these, as you said, this is a process that has been ongoing for a period of time now. This is not something that just happened yesterday.
No, the original idea for the connector road was probably about 8 years ago.
Right.
And as George said, through the circle alternative process, which included a lot of stakeholders as well as every municipality that touches the village. Each of those municipalities and the state all voted for the connector road to be actually the first and the most important project through the CERC process.
Robin, how much land are we talking about?
We're talking about a road that is about 28 foot wide. It's got 2 vehicle lanes, 2 bike lanes, and a sidewalk on one side.
I mean, on the property that we're proposing the action against, how much of their property are we talking about?
A sliver. In fact, it's at the moment the 2 properties in question have an access driveway that goes past their properties. We're replacing the access driveway with a village street, which means we'll be applying the access for them to get in, not them. We'll be maintaining it, not them. We're not actually taking any property away at the moment that isn't used by vehicles.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, Amber?
Am I understanding correctly that all of the costs, including legal costs, are paid, reimbursed by the state?
Yes.
Is that's
That's correct.
accurate?
Yes.
So yes, if this doesn't happen, then everything that has already been paid would come onto the village. Legal fees, easements.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the actual process, like
Oh,
a
yeah.
condemnation process,
I
so
got
that,
you. Yes.
so all of our attorney fees to go through that process would be paid for by the state.
It's my understanding.
Yes, I
Yeah.
should say that the propertors still get the compensation that was approved by the Department of Transportation, they still get their compensation.
Anybody have any other questions?
I'll make one other statement, because just Robin just jogged my memory. One of the other components of this, for the circuit alternative process, it wasn't just transportation improvement, it was economic development. And we look at particularly that side of the Crescent Connector as improving access to commercial properties, and this is one of them. I think both of the properties involve commercial properties.
Yes.
And this road will improve access to those commercial properties on that side of the tracks, which is one of the justifications for the project initially.
The road also allows traffic to keep moving when the chip train comes through,
Right.
which is a big deal because it backs up traffic for 3 or 4 or 5 cycles sometimes.
Absolutely, having been through that on the wrong side many times, yes. This will be a great help in just that alone. So if nobody has any other questions or comments, we can move on to the recommendation. Who wants to take a stab?
I can make a motion. Are you ready for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
It's going to be a fairly substantial motion, but it's in writing, thankfully, so we can hand a copy. So I'll make a motion that we initiate proceedings and a petition pursuant to 19 VSA Chapter 7 to lay out a road to be named Railroad Street and to be located beginning at a point on Park Street, approximately 875 feet south of the Five Corners intersection, then extending north along Park Street to the New England Central Railroad Burlington Branch, along the east side of the NECR Burlington Branch and crossing NECR's main line, continuing north across Maple Street and then along the existing alignment of Railroad Street to the intersection of Main Street. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further conversation or discussion? Do we need to talk about the proceedings will include notifying persons owning or interested in land, so on and so forth in
I
this
think that's
motion?
required by the law.
We will be following state statutes on notifications and hearings.
All right, so then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? None? Thank you, motion passes. Thank you, Robin. And so now we can proceed on to item 5B, to discuss planning commission vacancies.
Currently, the Plan Commission is set by the Design Code Review code at 7 members. We have 5 currently with the departure of Ms. Teeple from that prestigious group. So, just, it's one of those times in, you can look at it, many years ago, there used to be 5, and the village went to 7. Now there's 5 again currently, and quorum is still 4, because technically and legally they have 7 members. So the question is, does the village board, and we've been trying to fill these vacancies, at least the first one, for over a month, and now we have, or 2 months, and now we have the second one. It's just a question whether the village board wants to continue a plan commission of 7 members or move it down to 5. And it'll have quorum responsibilities. If you go to 5, 3 members have to be present to have a meeting. If you stay at 7, you need 4 members to have a meeting. One of the ideas always with the village is when we schedule a meeting, we want that meeting to go forward. You have petitioners, you have neighbors, everybody took a night to make sure they're there. We want to make sure meetings go on. Currently, we have it posted on Front Porch Forum and on the village website, and we're not getting much interest. I have asked one person, I left a voicemail.
So, from the board's perspective, Personally, I'm interested in the two who have served on the planning commission, no offense to either Rosh, George, or myself. But I'm curious from your perspective, what the difference of 5 to 7 has meant or could have meant to both of you? To put you on the spot.
Dan?
Been on, most recently, when I was on it, we didn't have as many, we weren't 7, we were a 5-member board. So I didn't have a problem with 5 members. I think the more members, as far as meeting the quorum required is more difficult. Also, the more members going through the process of discussing or deliberating over a petition or application can get quite lengthy. And not to say that I want to stifle discussion, but I also like to see the process move along as efficiently as possible. And so I am not opposed to 5 members. I'd be fine with that. I think that's an okay number. Okay?
I'm personally more concerned about the makeup of the 5 versus 7. I'm not so much concerned about the number as I am about who's on it, how well represented the village is. There's a lot more coming down the pike that's gonna generate a lot of discussion. And I think if we leave it to the 5 that are currently there, as opposed to opening it up one more time, I'm just a little, I don't know the makeup personally, so I'm feel like a little uninformed in that. Having said the makeup is important to me, I'm not sure specifically what the backgrounds of the people on the board are in that, I guess.
So I'm just curious, when you say that, when you say you're concerned about who's on the board, so then it sounds like you've got some concerns that, I guess, is there something like, you
No,
don't
I
think
don't-
it's diverse enough, or do you think it's not?
There's
To what end? I mean,
just enough variety of voices that would be, it seems like past discussions about recent development, people have sort of felt like they were arriving too late. They were just, I don't know
Yeah.
exactly how to.
do you think that's the
I
board, or
don't-
do you think that's the staff?
I think there's no, I don't think it's anything the board has
Right,
done wrong. I
yeah.
don't think it's anything the trustees have done wrong. I think people self-select into this. They're interested, they come
Mhm.
forward. We're lucky to have them. It's great. I'm just,
I,
and some of it's diversity, but I guess,
the thing about that, I get concerned when people talk about necessarily what the diversity and the I think it's a diverse board, and I think knowing the members, or some of the members, from experience being on board, I think it's a diverse board, and I think when people want looking for a certain aspect for people to have, I think it's diverse in the sense that we have people, when I was on board, I wasn't a builder, I wasn't in the building trades or anything like that, but I have my law enforcement background, I'm, lifelong Vermonter, been around the area. So I think there's many things that people can bring to the board.
and I don't have any definition for that that's so specific that
Okay.
I just want to make sure it's not
Yeah,
full of overly interested that's a perfect example of what I would think would be ideal. It's
yeah,
having a good mix. of
Yeah,
backgrounds.
yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
mean. And I'm coming in, I don't,
I'm just curious, but Amber, you just left the board, so what's your response to all that?
I'm just taking it all in.
Yeah.
Well, I think my opinion is that the quorum issue can go both ways, with 5 and with 7. I don't know that there's actually been an issue. Obviously, I was on for a period of time when Caitlin left, and so we did have, one vacancy, and we've run a vacancy for quite a while before that seat was filled. So my vote would be to just kind of let's keep the status quo right now and put it out there a little bit more, and give it a month or 2 or whatever, and see if we get any interest, and then kind of so table this, put it in the parking lot. I think that the board consists of a diverse range of folks. You've got a number of people on there who've been serving for years, well beyond. I was on there 4+ years, and they were on there longer than I was on. And, I mean, you've got engineers, you've got architects, you've got builders, I mean, so, and I think the tricky part becomes, as a planning commission member, that you are bound by the code.
Mhm.
You also warn every single meeting, and you get nobody coming to meetings. And so there is definitely a perception that, like, you know, planning commission isn't listening, and, you know, and
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
so.
Yeah, there's no doubt that some of the recent development has brought people to the table who felt as if they were coming too late
Yeah.
and felt uninformed in terms of when to show up.
Yeah.
And that's, yeah,
And they are coming too late. The honest answer is they're coming too late because they're not coming when we say, hey, this is when the process starts.
right.
And then they wait, and then,
Yeah.
you know, Pearl is a great example of that. Coming after the project has been approved doesn't help the situation.
Mhm.
So yes, you can go through the Act 250 process, but, so,
Mhm.
a lot of that is education. It really is an educational piece, so.
That, your comment about the whole thing coming late to the table also is, like you're saying, the education, just as much as with the planning commission or with the consolidation effort that we've been doing and trying to explain, you know, the inequities within our community. The education portion of this, like Amber was saying, is the LDC or the Land Development Code. And people confuse the Land Development Code with the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan in a nutshell is just a pie in the sky dream of what we kind of envision our future to be. The Land Development Code is the law or the rules as stated by the board. It's the community, the rules we're governed by, development has to fit within the code and can't be any otherwise. So, and I think people have this misconception that they come to the meeting, they can voice their opinion, and if it's counter to the code, it doesn't matter, we're voicing our opinion, we want to see what this, and it doesn't happen their way. We didn't get heard, we didn't get our way, and leave upset. Well, I'm sorry, that's the way it goes, you know, change the code.
I'd say, just one point, one small minor point, is that actually Village Center, you don't have to go through Act 250 because we're a
That's right,
neighborhood
yeah.
designation.
Right.
But the code and also the Design Five Corners plan were pieces that were put in place over years and by many, many meetings that were open to the public and broadly advertised. And so it's not reasonable suddenly you have this plan that's guiding development that was put in place by a lot of people but with a lot of effort, and we've been pretty open about this. And so for someone to show up and say, well, I don't like what you're doing, and I want to have an impact, it's like, yeah, it is kind of late. That's not, the law just doesn't allow that to happen that way, you know, it's a slow grinding process, and it's intended to be that way, so. To go back to the number of people on the planning commission, I would kind of like to see it stay at 7. If we think 5 is a better number, I'd rather see us do it in a proactive way. Say, well, maybe we don't need 5, and you know, the next time someone resigns, we won't replace them, and then after that, we won't replace them, or something like that. Because I think we do get a lot of turnover, and we could quickly find ourselves down, and particularly since we're not getting a lot of response. One last thing I'll add is there's absolutely nothing wrong with the 5 of us reaching out to people that we know in the community and tapping them and letting them know that there's this opening, and it's very interesting work. So it doesn't have to just be advertised on Front Porch Forum. We can actively try to seek people out. Those
I guess, just
my thoughts.
what I said poorly, I think what I was trying to get at is I think 7 offers more opportunity.
I gotcha. I agree.
I said it very
Totally
poorly,
agree.
but
Yeah.
I'd hate to get rid of that right away. I mean, if we just plain can't fill them then it's really holding people up.
Right.
It's not working, but.
So,
If it pleases you, I guess what I'd say is let's try it for about another 60 days. See what comes before you in terms of candidates, and at that point you can revisit this and we'll keep trying. And I like the point, George, I was gonna make the same point. Maybe we need to do some more person-on-person asking versus waiting for someone to see an ad in Front Porch Forum or on the website.
right, right. When we think about the people who are currently in any of our committees or commissions that we have, I think it's fair to say that many of them, if not most, did not just respond to an ad, but rather there was some kind of a personal ask or some type of a conversation that happened in advance.
And Amber, they meet on Thursdays.
Yeah, I think it's warned for every other, but it's rare that they meet that much. However, we're going through the comprehensive
Right.
plan.
But
stuff,
usually
so-
at least once a month on a Thursday, starts at
That's, yeah,
7,
I think that's.
sometimes
average.
twice, but
Starts at
not.
6.
6,
6 o'clock.
thank you.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's interested with the updates that are happening now, when is that process supposed to end? Do you recall?
I believe it's being.
May
this-
23rd.
Yeah, so they're voting this week, right?
Next week.
To bring it to,
So they wouldn't have to worry about that type of a thing, they could come on
A
with
couple
fresh
years.
eyes.
I would like to see, I would really like to see if we can't somehow figure out how to make it available to people in the town outside the village. I know that might rub some people the wrong way, but I think that there might be it'd tap into a whole other half of the community that consider this to be part of their community. And I think there might be a lot of people in the town outside the village that would really like to be part of what's going on here. Unfortunately, I know it's complex in terms of charter but if we could figure out, I'd rather work on that piece than whittling it down, because it would just, you talk about diversity, I think you'd get some more diversity there.
I think from a bike walk committee perspective, we've had more interest recently, the past months, from people in the town.
Yeah.
And one person we just thought we were gonna get, just signed for a house, just across over the border, so he emailed to say thanks, but no thanks, but, yeah, I mean, from that, it also might be an interesting idea as we try to, move forward with the other stuff, so.
Is there a difference, I'm assuming there's a difference between not an advisory committee versus, a planning commission that is non-advisory, it's, quasi-judicial in nature.
An advisory committee is established by the village board.
Right.
That you could do almost anything.
So we could
with
allow
environs.
town.
You could
yeah,
allow it on an advisory board.
not
Plan commission is done by charter,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but,
She left.
Claudine was in the audience, but I could certainly talk with her and/or I have a phone call with Dan Richards set up for early next week.
And from what we're talking about, if we leave this open through June, possibly through July, we've got some time.
Yeah.
There's nothing overly pressing. The only thing with that timeline to keep in mind is these are very popular travel months for people who like to get out of here for a little while.
What, miss this weather?
Right.
The never-ending rain and chill.
12 degrees.
Yes.
So, and I think it is incumbent if we can have everybody at least try to identify one or two people. I'll do the contacting, be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Or Robin, but soon enough, we should try to get at least one more member
Yeah,
to make it 6.
absolutely.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything else? Okay. We'll follow back up on that in July or August timeframe. We had added onto the agenda business item 5C, which we will move to at the end of the executive session. So at this point, we are on to the consent agenda, and before that gets approved, just want to point out that we have the approval of managers' annual appointments. Not to diminish anything else on the list, just wanted to make sure to point that out, as well as appointment to other representatives and alternatives to other committees.
Maybe for the new members, so in the charter, I believe it is the manager's appointment with board consent for the village engineer and the village attorney. I can't remember, there's one more, but right now that's what we're looking to do. Hamlin has been the village engineer since the beginning of dirt in the village.
1996.
1996, okay, maybe just after dirt was invented. Last year, Dave Barra, who had been the village attorney for a long time, became a judge. So apparently he was not able to do both of those jobs. I know,
Yeah.
rules. So we went through a selection process and came up with Claudine Safar, who I think has done a fantastic job in her first year in that role. And so I recommend giving them another appointment.
And just for the other two appointments, it's Susan McNamara Hill for the village treasurer, tax collector, as well as then
That's correct.
Chief Gaborio as fire chief again.
Yes,
Yeah.
2 others. Thank you for reminding me. Chief Gaborio does such a great job with the volunteer fire department. He also is a paid-on-call chief for the most part. Susan McNamara Hill is doing a great job over, her office is over at 81 Main, but she does act as the village clerk as well. If you have not had a chance to see their vault and all the activity that goes on through there every day with people checking out records, doing deed searches and all that stuff, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing.
So is there anything on the consent agenda? Anybody want to make a motion?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Great, thank you, that passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
We appreciate that position and serving the community.
Thank you, Jeff.
Continue.
For the new members, if you all don't mind, would you like to introduce yourself to the?
My name is Jeff Kirshner. I'm the president of Hamilton.
Jeff, why don't you come up to the microphone? So the people at home will just hear a voice and it's just talking.
Or may not hear the voice.
So my name is Jeff Kirshner. I'm the current president of Donald Hamlin Consulting Engineers. I've been there since 1993. Actually, I started working there in high school. 1988, I was mowing the lawn there. And so now I'm currently the president, so
Wow.
it's been quite a journey for
That's
myself.
quite a story.
That's impressive.
So, born in I lived in the village as a kid, and I actually live in the town now. But I've been an Essex resident for quite a long while, so
Nice.
Great.
Well, we thank you.
the community's near and dear to my heart for sure. So,
Nice to meet
and I
you.
appreciate you guys continuing to have us be the village engineer. We, all of us there really enjoy that work.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Nice to meet you all.
So going into the reading file, are there board member comments?
I don't have board member, and Raj was there last night. We'll give just a very, very quick summary of what we did with the local governance committee. As a next step, we decided that we are going to hire someone to conduct a series of focus groups. These will be a little bit different than the usual public forums and so forth that we've had in the past with the facilitator. The idea, if it happens, will be for someone a marketing kind of person who is used to doing focus groups, will identify people in the village and the town and pick out venues, a restaurant or something like that, and just try to get a sense of how they feel about consolidation and some other issues. Am I getting it right, Raj? Is that about?
I think that's not true.
Yeah. And we'll put more in the report to both the elected boards for our next joint meeting.
That sounds great. So would that be in replacement of the consultants that we talked about the last time?
Yeah, I think we decided that, we looked at all the responses and we presented this really, just this immensely complicated sounding thing, and that was the response that we got. It just, people, I mean, there were some other reasons, but the response coming back was just, this is just too much. I'm not sure, you know, I could do this, or it's a little too much. Some people were just busy or had other things going on. And so Raj had suggested that we try to break it down. And after quite a bit of deliberation, we thought this would be a good initial step. And in the background, we're gonna be thinking of coming up with a wider, more generic kind of survey that we will send out to residents throughout the community.
Nice.
Yeah. But it's a first step to start moving, and to get all of us some feedback about how people out there are feeling, to start doing some focus groups.
That aligns really well with, Elaine and I had met with village staff, as well as Liz Gamesh and Jen Nauer, to talk about and plan for the strategic advance on June 22nd, of the name. And what you're talking about, can we get some kind of fanfare as we just walk in?
Yeah.
I just did.
There might be
That's it?
confetti.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
the one? Okay, gotcha.
I don't know,
The
confetti, you want a confetti drop?
Balloons. Anyway, and what you're talking about aligns really well with what we were discussing and where some gaps may be, and that some of the expertise that we might be looking for is within our community as it is now, so that's great. I do have another, one thing I wanted to add. On a different note, I was asked recently about if anybody saw, the Chamber of Commerce has a Burlington Young Professionals group who put out a survey to anybody who's ever been a part of their membership or a member of the chamber to respond to the survey, and they recently released their survey results on the state of the Burlington, using air quotes, is really anybody in that area, young professionals, and what their opinions are and their perceptions on various things. And one of the questions that was asked is if you could live anywhere in Vermont, where would you want to live? And Essex, neither, including both the town and the Junction, neither made the top 10 list of places to live from this group, which was a little surprising when I heard that. And so one of the things that I've talked about in the conversation about this is I took a look into the American Community Survey, which is part of the census done on a regular basis. Come to find out, since 2010, Essex's 25 to 34-year-old population has grown by 6.2 and 6.3% every year. That's Essex Town and Essex Junction since 2010. So from 2010 to when this was done in 2017, it has grown by over 6% every single year. And in that top 10 list, there were only 3 communities that actually outpaced our growth. So from perception to reality, we in Essex, both town and village, are far surpassing what the perception may be, but because in reality we actually have we have many individuals within this age group who are living here and continuing to choose to live in Essex and Essex Junction. So the question I was asking me is, what is Essex doing? Say, well, I would almost push back and say, what are we not doing besides apparently telling the story? Because clearly we are a place that people in this age group want to live.
That's just chamber membership, all right?
The survey
Yeah.
is anybody who has signed up to attend a Burlington Young Professionals event is a chamber member. I did as well. Yeah.
It's pretty self, so I mean, I'd say we have 25, I would wonder what the breakdown is in our community versus.
We're gonna find out in the
Hospital,
2020.
university, you know, like
Yeah.
in education and hospital, I think you
Yeah.
probably aren't gonna get a lot of people in those groups, but.
I do encourage everybody to take a look at the
Curious.
results, though. There are some interesting things in there, some good thought processes to just go through when you look at the results. But yes, there's still, I think I've overwhelmed the woman who coordinates it with my questions.
I do think that things are changing here. I mean, you start seeing the types of housing that is being developed in the 5 corners with the proposal for upwards of 50 studio apartments that is geared for young professionals and maybe others, but specifically for young professionals. I think we do need to do a better job of telling our story. I think we can and will start doing that better and linking in our amenities of what we provide to that age group and other age groups as well, and our proximity to the job centers, and also being the 2nd largest job center in the state of Vermont. Which leads me to one other thing, some good news. We worked with Blodgett Oven about a month ago to help them pitch their parent company, which is Middleby, to bring another division of Middleby here. And we just got informed the other day that they did in fact win that pitch. There's a 90,000 square foot building that's being built by Bobby Miller that will, by contract, he needs to be finished with it by September 1st, which actually probably means he needs to be done by August 15th because they have to do training and hiring, but they're looking to bring at least 50 more jobs, 50 to 90 jobs from that division.
It would be
Where's it gonna be? Where's it gonna be?
It is gonna be up in the Saxon Hill area.
It would be great if something gets to the reporter, the free press, again, help to tell the stories.
So
Wonderful places.
we beat out Mississippi and North Carolina.
Nice.
Interesting.
So, but those are the stories that we have to do a better job. I mean, we just found out yesterday, so it's quite fresh, but we
Yeah.
need to do a job of how to tout that We did a great job working with Green Mountain Transit, saving the number 4 bus. The number 2 bus is the highest ridership of any bus route on the GMT line. Those are the types of things that's coming through this community, and what we're building downtown and in other places, I think, bodes well for that future.
Anybody else have any other comments for this evening? Evan, was there anything else you wanted to add in terms of manager report, since it isn't on the agenda?
I was at the State House earlier today. It was very nice. Representative Redmond helped us get a resolution at the state for the Unsworth family, who donated 165 acres next to Indian Brook Park. Basically, that parcel had been identified by the town and several state agencies as being a parcel of significance for the region in terms of types of lands that it had on it for animals, waterways, and open space and other things. And if anybody knows anything about deer, which I don't, it is actually one of the trails that they use to migrate through and graze through. So 165 acres down there. It's very nice of Ms. Redmond to set that up and do it. And they were, the village and the town was represented there. Larry Howden was there. And it's just a great morning, and I'm sure there will be some news coverage from that.
Great.
That's all I have.
Moving on from the reading file, going into a portion for executive session. So I will move that the trustees enter into executive session to discuss a real estate matter in accordance with 1 VSA section 313A2 and to include the manager, assistant manager, okay, and community development director.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. I'll take a few minutes to let the